After a week of xenophobic attacks, South Africa grapples for answers. So this is out of Africa. And so I've been watching this scene here closely. And lately, South Africa is experiencing some problems. And let's get into what these problems are. And so Peter Blatte and DeWitt Gelmo contributed to this report. And so the names are probably going to sound, foreign, of course. So I might not be able to pronounce them. So I have to apologize before this. But I want to start off by saying that if you look at this picture here, you see the cars are charred and burned. So a man, he looks at the cars that were burned during the latest spat of xenophobic attacks at a car dealership in Johannesburg, South Africa. And so what this whole thing is about, it gets into it in several articles that I found. I've been looking at this, and it's really bad. There's a lot of fighting going on, a lot of supposedly, allegedly looting, and a disagreement between shopkeepers and people that are coming into an area and they're making money, and Nigerians are disgruntled as well. And so this involves South Africans and Nigerians. And so Zariaham Tabo, an Ethiopian shopkeeper, surveyed. It's not only just that there are people, I believe, I have to backtrack. So from what I saw earlier in the week, there are shopkeepers. They're from different parts of Africa, like different continents or different regions. They're from different backgrounds. And the people that are in this general area are disgruntled because they feel as though they're taking advantage of their people and their incomes and things like that. They could have the jobs. They could have open up businesses, but they're not able to. They're poor. And so these other people coming from these other places are able to open up these pick and pay. If you know what these places are, they're little shops. And so let's get into this. So an Ethiopian shopkeeper, Zerahan Tabo, surveyed the wreckage of his neighborhood store in Johannesburg, so South Africa, this week after the looters pillaged it. So it can't even express what happened. It's so heavy. It's so very difficult, he said. So Zerahan is one of the dozens of victims of xenophobic attacks that have spread across the country in recent days. There also have been killings, at least 5, and destroying the livelihoods of many more people, of course. So in an interview with BOA's Amharic service, Zeraham pondered his future and that of other foreigners living in South Africa. Okay, and so I could pretty much go on with this article, but in South Africa, there's a lot going on here. If you've seen the pictures, they're very graphic. You'll see things that look like people have been looting. They've been burning things. There was a video where people were fighting in the streets. So it is chaos right now. So it goes on to say that I used to sell bottles in my store, but I have no hope in this country. So he said that after working hard and building something for so many years and losing it all at once, it's ugly. So the attacks against foreigners in South Africa are not new. According to the website, the Xeno Watch, which tracks such incidences, more than 500 attacks occurred between 1994 all the way to 2018. So the attacks seem to spike periodically. More than 100 attacks in 2008 left more than 60 people dead, and more than 70 attacks occurred in 2015. And this year is on the track to be another violent one, with more than 40 incidences recorded right now. So more than half of the incidences unfolded in Johannesburg, the country's largest city in South Africa. So the roots of the anger, let's get into this. The roots of the anger are against foreigners of different, that are difficult to pin down, okay? So this is against foreigners coming into the country. South Africa is home to about 3.6 million foreigner nationals who make up about 7% of the population. The majority is about 70% that come from neighboring countries of Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Lesotho. Okay, so some politicians and officials have amplified the widely held belief that foreigners own an outsized share of businesses in the country, particularly in the poor townships. So at a press conference on Monday, South Africa's former Deputy Minister of Police, Bongani Mkongi, claimed that the residents of the Hillbrow neighborhood of Johannesburg are about 80% foreign-born. So we cannot surrender South Africa to foreign nationals, he said. This is a matter of principle. And so we fought for this country, and not only for us, but for generations of South Africans. Okay, so this is out of the signal right here, and you can see. So you won't find South Africans in other countries dominating a city up to about 80%. We cannot surrender South Africa to foreign nationals. South Africa Deputy Minister of Police. Okay, so Bongani Mkongi, xenophobic attacks. Okay, so the fact-checking website Africa Fact Check, or Africa Check, examined his claim and found it to be false. Okay, so the anger against foreigners dates back decades, and so it gets more deeper into it. And Jean-Pierre Misago, a researcher of the African Center for Migration and Society at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg. Okay, so because of oppressive restrictions of apartheid, Black people were forced to live in poor areas known as townships. And so when the immigrants arrived and looked for business opportunities, they often found that these same townships were the only places where they could afford to open shops. And so this bred anger and resentment. They say, you are taking our businesses and you are undermining our businesses, and we are now competing with you for scarce jobs and scarce resources. Sounds familiar to what's going on in the States with other issues here. And so we don't want, Misago told VOA, okay, we don't want that. And so political leaders unable to deliver services and jobs for the constituents often scapegoat immigrants. And so the government is not able to deliver basic services to those areas. And to justify their delivery failures, they blame those foreign nationals for delivery failures. So if you don't find medicine in your clinic, it is because the foreign nationals, there are too many and they are taking it and walking away from you, Misago said. So in response to the recent spat of attacks from South African politicians, are now seeking to cool the rhetoric. So President Cyril Ramaphosa said that there is no justification for the violence and convened security ministers to develop a response plan. So in the interview of VOA, Peter Closey Gardy, the General Secretary of South Africa's Economic Freedom Fighters political party, said that the killing of Africans by other Africans is unacceptable and must be punished. So Africa was a borderless continent, Gardy said, but the borders were imposed on us by the imperialists and colonialists, and we shall continue to condemn that conduct by the communities against our fellow brothers and sisters from other parts of Africa. So there's this dividing going on based on this issue here. Now, this is where I get into the Nigerians attack South African businesses in retaliation. Okay, so I'm going to jump to this article because I want you to see that I wasn't making it up, and I had been watching this recently. South African-owned businesses operating in Nigeria are being targeted with violence in retaliation for xenophobic attacks carried out against Africans working in South Africa. So this is really getting out of control. It's gotten out of control. And so this one is coming from out of Africa as well. So that's the title. And you see this fiery mess here. Okay, so a bonfire is set outside the ShopRite during a protest in Abuja, Nigeria. Okay, so this was September the 4th, 2019. So this was recent. So South African-owned businesses operating in Nigeria are being targeted in retaliation for xenophobic attacks carried out against Africans working in South Africa. And so Lagos, Nigeria. Okay, so the South African-owned businesses operating in Nigeria are being targeted with violence in retaliation for xenophobic attacks carried out against Africans working in South Africa. So police in South Africa arrested more than 100 people in 5 areas impacted by days of violence in Johannesburg and Pretoria. So amid a growing outcry about the attacks on many Nigerians living in South Africa, youth took to the streets Tuesday evening in some Nigerian cities to attack South African-owned businesses. So the offices of South Africa telecommunications giant MTN in the southwest city of Ibadan were set ablaze Tuesday, while the company's office in Uyo in the southeast was attacked by an angry crowd that vandalized properties, according to the local newspaper report. So there's shattered glass, tires, damaged printers lay in the vandalized MTN shops in the Surrey neighborhood of Lagos. Okay, so which on Wednesday had police vans outside. So they broke into the shop carrying laptops and many other things away, Bala Muhammad told the Associated Press. So I had to close my kiosk because I was afraid because some of the people will use the opportunity to come and steal. So it has happened before, as they are a lot of people and you won't know who to hold responsible. So the Lagos outlet of South African clothing retailer Pep in Surulere, and I may not be saying it correctly, so excuse me for that, was also attacked and looted. And so the crowd surged within a few minutes. The shop was empty, Stephen Obamfemi told AP. So the Lagos state government in the press statement Wednesday confirmed that 2 outlets of the South African supermarket chain ShopRite were attacked in Lagos. And these attacks are condemned as well, as they are against the Nigerian spirit of accommodation and benevolence that the country in general, Lagos State in particular, is noted for. So Lagos State Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Benga Omotoso, said in a statement, so many South African-owned businesses in parts of the country are now under police protection. So Nigeria and South Africa are Africa's biggest economies. Okay, so Nigeria has a large immigrant community in South Africa, while South Africa has a huge business interest in Nigeria. Okay, so these include telecommunications, banking, energy, hotel, and media. And so years of xenophobic attacks on Nigerians living in South Africa has led to growing sentiments against South African companies doing business in Nigeria. So it's a back and forth thing, you guys. So this gets into why all of this has been happening. So with many Nigerians calling for their closure. Okay, so South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa on Tuesday condemned the days of widespread looting and arson and foreign-owned businesses. So Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari said that he had dispatched a special envoy to South Africa to convey his concerns to President Ramaphosa. Okay, so there's several comments. I'm not going to read it, but it has been chaos in these places of Lagos, Nigeria. It has been chaos, and some of the pictures, y'all, are just really sad. It's like it's over what almost sound like similar issues that happen here in the States when people come from other countries and they're able to open up businesses and they're able to get loans, and the people who have always been here are not foreign born, but they're natives. They're not able to get loans. They're not able to open up businesses, and they keep getting poor, and they're working poor. But you have these people come from out of nowhere, and they're able to open up businesses. They're able to, and so you kind of can see where some of this frustration is. But this is what's been going on, y'all. I thought I would bring these out because I saw some pictures of the crazy attacks that have been going on out there. Look at this. Just take a look. If you think I'm lying, I'm not. Nigeria urges against retaliation to South African xenophobia. And so this is really bad. It looks so scary. You see them with guns, people running in the street, and they're trying to keep looters away. People were fighting. It is crazy. This is in Johannesburg, South Africa, right here in Lagos, Nigeria. There has been fighting, boy. I mean, there's a ShopRite, and then there's a store called Pick and Pay, and I'm sure people who are from these places that have been to Africa know about all of the craziness. And so this one, look what it's entitled. It's all over the place. Nigeria urges against retaliation to South African xenophobia. And so it has been crazy. And I was looking at this, I was like, oh my gosh, you would think that, now this tells you when people come from different places or how they feel about each other. And when it comes to business and money, it can divide many, many people. So policemen are shooting canisters of tear gas to disperse people during demonstrations and attacks against South Africa's own shops in Abuja, Nigeria. Okay, so this is Johannesburg, South Africa, with anti-immigrant violence sweeping parts of South Africa. Nigeria on Wednesday urged its citizens to refrain from vengeance, even as at least 2 major South African-owned companies have suspended some operations there because of the attacks. That's how bad. It's even being posted on Twitter and Twitter post. The Information Ministry for Nigeria, the continent's biggest economy, said the federal government has appealed to Nigerians not to attack South African companies operating in Nigeria in retaliation for the ongoing xenophobic attacks against Nigerians in South Africa. But days, y'all, of looting and attacks on South African businesses believed owned by foreigners have had a ripple effect. So South African grocery chain ShopRite Holdings said that some stores operating in its domestic market, as well as in Nigeria and Zambia, have been closed following the attacks. So out of Reuters News Service reported on Wednesday. So the South African telecom operator, again MTN, which is big, shuttered stores in Nigeria following attacks in several cities there and citing safety concerns for the customers and staff. So vandals damaged its offices in the southeastern city of Uyo and set fire to MTN property in the southwest city of Ibadan on Tuesday, according to the Associated Press. So this is what happened. It's been crazy. And so the MTN kiosks in Lagos, they broke into the shop carrying laptops and many other things away, Bala Muhammad told the AP. The Twitter post attributed to Chief Executive Ferdi Mulumon said MTN Nigeria seeks to connect people, bring people together, and provide a platform for everyone's voice to be heard. South African police have reported at least 5 people killed and more than 110 arrested amid rioting and protests against the employment of foreigners. Employment of foreigners. Highways have been blockaded, and vehicles were bombed with petrol. And so in downtown Johannesburg, a Nigerian man surveyed the shattered windows of his car dealership. He told police at the scene that he has a staff of 10 and they are all South African. And so it is just me alone and my partner that is in Nigeria who are foreigners, said the man, so who did not disclose his name to VOA. And so we came to create jobs for them, and we are not like stealing jobs from them. We are creating. And so, but people think that's not what's going on. And so that's where all this anger and animosity is coming from. So I'm adding that in there. So it's dividing people. So South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has urged the country's residents to stop attacking foreigners and vandalizing the businesses. So in a tweet posted on Tuesday, he was convening the ministers in the security cluster today to make sure that we keep a close eye on the acts of the wanton violence and find ways to stopping them. So with attacks continuing, Nigeria has joined Rwanda, so Malawi, and the Democratic Republic of Congo in declining to send delegations to the World Economic Forum on Africa, which opened Wednesday in Cape Town. So Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari reportedly has sent a representative to South Africa to address the concerns of widespread dissatisfaction with dire socioeconomic conditions in South Africa, where more than half the population lives in poverty and unemployment tops 27%, have made foreigners easy targets for local people's anger and frustration. So some analysts and rights groups say that this is what is where the anger is coming from. So people who live there are in poverty and they are not making any money and they're not finding a way. So how can you open up these businesses and think that these people are going to be happy? So something is going terribly wrong. But their attacks harm South Africans too as well, said Lizette Lancaster of the Pretoria-based Institute for Security Studies. So many of the shops have been looted and that have been looted or rented by foreigners from South Africans. So the real victims here are not just the migrants from the other countries in Africa, but our own people as well, she said, which I've also seen where they say South Africans do have investments in some of these businesses that people think, the townships people thinks that are just foreigners coming from out of other places. So Lancaster, a manager with the Institute's Justice and Violence Prevention Program, called in addressing the narratives about foreigners committing crime, as well as they are taking businesses away because it's not the truth, she says. So the World Bank report released last November surveyed immigrants' impact on South Africa's locals' work and wages in 1996 to 2011. And it found that entrepreneurial foreign workers created jobs for locals. So researchers caution that the study's scope was limited. They cautioned it, okay, of course, and also noted that the host communities could experience short-term costs. Okay, so just look at the violence. Just South African police arrest 90 as unrest in the cities continues. So this is what's happening in Africa, y'all. Those of you who say you want to go back to the motherland, you might want to rethink your visit, because just as there's discord in the U.S., there is discord in the motherland. And so this is sad. Warnings to foreigners on Monday. African government warns citizens living in South Africa to take safety precautions and express frustration with the latest wave of attacks targeting foreign-owned businesses in South Africa. Okay, so this is real. Okay, so take a look at they basically Articles are basically stating the same thing. The owner of the shoe shop is helped by a staff member to inspect the damage caused by looters in, what is it called? Germiston, east of Johannesburg, South Africa. This was September 3rd, 2019. Look at this. This is city shoe fashion. Look what has happened here. You can see where they just torn apart everything. It's terrible. And so this is what's been happening. Looting, violence spread in South Africa's major cities, y'all. So you might want to be rethinking about going over to that place. Probably not. And so while, they're having crazy chaos in Hong Kong, if you don't know about that, that's a whole separate issue. They are having crazy chaos in Africa, parts of Africa. Lagos, Johannesburg, some of the places that I've named earlier. It is complete chaos. And so, having said that, I mean, when you see this, it's not uncommon. And so this is the scene, y'all. This is what's going on. And so it's been for days that this is happening. And so with that being said, I'm going to let this video go. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you for listening. But violence can happen anywhere. And if you think about this, think about it. Poor people that don't have money to make it and to survive on, and they feel that people are coming over into their territories and they're able to thrive, they're making money, and the local people feel like they're being ignored, there's high unemployment. This can happen anywhere with any group of people. And so if you have poverty and it gets out of control to where you have people that are homeless, like what happens here in the States, all the major cities, people are noticing there's more homelessness. Homelessness is growing here in America. You see tents under freeways and everywhere. This is what happens when people get fed up from not having basic needs met. It can happen anywhere. Having said that, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for listening.